Hello, Amy. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today to hear from Amy. I'm going to cover just a couple International Coaching Federation San Antonio chapter announcements, and then I will turn it over. We do have peer coaching. For those of you who don't know, if you haven't participated in it, I have. Peer coaching is a great thing where coaches just get together and coach each other. We set our goals just like anybody else would. I have really benefited from doing peer-to-peer coaching. If you haven't done it and you would like to consider it, it's a big part of our membership. And Member Connect, remembering that you can connect $100 for affiliates, $75 for ICF global members, and $250 for up to corporate. And that's they do that every Wednesday if you want to be a part of that, and that is all of the Texas chapters.
Can I ask a question in regard to peer coaching, because I am
Sure
new to getting involved with this chapter? What are the specifics with regard to the peer coaching? And I did participate very shortly about a year ago with someone that didn't continue, but I'm definitely interested in learning more, and we can certainly do that offline if that's more appropriate.
Yeah, and thank you for the question. It's a great thing. And you can reach out to our program manager, and what they tend to do is say, here's what I want to be coaching on, and they try their best to really match that person that's right for you. I was matched as an OD professional. I do a lot of coaching around a lot of OD, my consulting's OD, and the person was HR, and what we were looking to have coaching around each other's industry. It was a perfect match. And how long is up to you two. You come up with, here's my goal, what I want to accomplish, that other person, and then you agree on. That's between you two. How often you meet, how long you meet, because it is a peer-to-peer, typically a pro bono, because you're giving each other time. And how you structure that is up to you as well.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Thank you for asking.
That's specific to San Antonio, unlike the national one, because I've done the national peer coaching before.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you for bringing that in. I've only done the San Antonio chapter, but it would be great to participate in the national as well.
I've done it several times over, so.
Yeah. For those that are looking to get, and like you said, I'm trying to get more involved in my chapter. Here's some great things going on. Coaching SIGs, we do that the first Thursday of every month, where coaches just come together and talk about whatever's on their mind. Member Connect is the first Wednesday. ICF Southwest Regional Webinar Series, second Thursdays. And the partnership series is quarterly. And then our in-person events, we will be getting those soon. All of this information and the details is on our website. And May 23rd, we do have one of our big events coming up. It's a 2-part series. And then as you can see in June, we have our change management boot camp. And then the Member Connect and Coaching Conversations is June 7th. So those are all things, again, you can find all of this information at ICFSA.org. CPCC.org. It has all of this. We got a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of activities. And if you want to be notified or be able to log on, we do have an app. Just download the Wild Apricot app and go to find our chapter. Of course, you can follow us. We've got lots of social media, Facebook, Slack, LinkedIn, Twitter. So I do want to, those are all of our announcements. Everything's on our web. Want to really push you over there, but I really want to get to our presenter today. Very excited about that. Amy is coming to us all the way from DC. So we really appreciate her making the trek and bringing all of her knowledge to us. She really shares, she's going to share today how to dig deeper and look at our values and how to bring it into focus as to what really matters for your clients and how to utilize those core values as a rudder to really help with their life decisions. This will be, of course, experiential, and you'll have an opportunity to practice. With that said, we're all coaches. We love to talk. So we do ask in advance, please manage that airtime a little bit. We love to get our thoughts out there. Let's make sure that we're staying within the timeframes that Amy is providing us. Really what we want to do is the coach is going to learn why knowing one's relationships, values versus personal values is instrumental to developing those relationships. Our 3 key takeaways today we will explore why knowing one's values is instrumental to the relationship, being able to identify my values in more depth with greater specificity, and how to identify one's values in a relationship versus person. I can't wait to bring her on and for her to go over this. And I just want to let you know who she is. She is a certified professional life coach through Coaches Training Institute. And she is certified coach through the International Coach Federation, PCC, since 2016. Her area of focus is in helping singles and couples create loving relationships that sustain life partnerships. She is the creator of the Motivated to Marry Dating Secrets coaching program and has really helped people achieve really incredible results in their relationships. She has been on national print, TV, radio. She's been in New York Times, the Wall Street, Washington Post, and a lot of other programs. So we are really fortunate here at ICF for her to have agreed to jump in and share her expertise with us. And again, this will be recorded so that we can share this out. I will now stop sharing our ICF slides. And Amy, thank you again so much for bringing your expertise to our chapter and sharing with us. And I would like to turn it over to you.
Okay, so I'm not good with technology, so we'll see if this works, okay? No, it didn't come up. Why did it not come up? I didn't, you can see, oh, you're gonna see my emails and everything.
We see your screen. Yes.
I had the Canva up and I don't know it. I'm gonna stop sharing. Let me try it again. There's a trick to this, okay? You share and then you pull up something that you had. Where is the whiteboard? No.
Is it open?
I had it open before I started the meeting and I'm like, oh, it's right there. Outlook. I post now.
Well, because what happens is it always works in practice. It never works when it's showtime.
I know. All right. Well, let me go into history and see if I can pull it up from there. Recently closed. No. What the? It's just not working. Okay. Let me try one more thing. Got to get out of Safari. Let's see. You guys are being patient. Okay. I'll just get you guys going while I'm looking for my slides. Okay. And so I don't understand why this is happening. Here, Zoom meeting, so I want you to put in the chat, where do you see values showing up in your life? Okay, so that will give me a little time to figure out where this stuff is. and I had it up. And let's say file, new window, Canva. Okay, and now I have to, okay, I'm gonna fix this. And it's right here. Come on, you can do this. Okay, so I'm not gonna hit the present right away because if I do that, how do I get you guys back? Okay, I have to go back to Zoom. I'll go back to Zoom. Okay, I'll do this. Okay, present. Okay.
I love
present.
how you talk to yourself out loud.
Now I can't get, I don't see you guys. How do I get into Zoom? Open presenter. Let me escape. Let's try this again. I just want you to know what I'm trying to do here. I'm going to share.
Amy, if you want to, can you?
There you
No,
go.
no, yeah.
There
So
we
I
go.
have it, but then I have to hit
Yes.
the present.
You got it.
Yeah, but I don't understand how to keep it open and then get back to Zoom. So anyway, this is my, I only have 4 slides. It's not a lot.
We'll get you there.
Okay, so coach, deep dive. Okay, so you guys put in the chat, right? Well, how values show up in your life, right?
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
see anything. Oh, there
So
we
what
go.
we have is Virginia shared relationships, well-being, mindset. Elizabeth, do you go Elizabeth or Liz?
I go
Elizabeth.
by Elizabeth. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Elizabeth, values show up for me in ways I find myself spending my free time. And Cora wrote, everywhere, work, family, marriage, parenting, self.
Right. Yeah. So as a coach, we're bound to, well, relationships are all our whole, our whole life, right? And it's front and central. It's like who you befriend, who you hang out with, who you meet up with and networking and conferences, who you date, who you marry, who you partner with in business, who you hire, it's just everywhere, right? So the reason why we want to keep acutely aware is to give you, I don't know about you, but when you know your values and you know them pretty like deep, then it gives you a peace of mind. It gives you a keen sense of knowing quickly who you align with and who, and that you're on the same page and you think and feel alike. And it also kind of shows you when there are glaring differences with that person. And then you can make some decisions about how you want to interact with that person. Sometimes we have to interact with people that we're not aligned with. So values inform everything from, like I said, work, whom we do things and visions. And I gave you, the list. I want to give you an example of something that happened in my life where it really kind of came home. And it was almost while I was learning to be a coach. And I was in a mom's play group. My son was young. It was kind of like in preschool. And we all got together for a mom's kind of get together with the kids. And so I was talking about how I really enjoy this music class. And it's called Music Together, and you play instruments and you sing. And I just thought it was wonderful. And it was wonderful to expose my son to music and everything like that. And this one mom just said in front of everybody, I hate that class. And my stomach just, I don't know where you feel it, but like, ugh. And I was like, oh my God, and then I knew at that time, I said, you know what? This woman, I can never be friends with this woman. I could be in a room and be friendly with her, but this is not the kind of person I want to be in relationship with. So, we make all our life's decisions around values. And, whether you're aware of it or not. And of course, as coaches, we want our clients to be more aware of their values. So I know my clients decide who to be in relationship because of values. And I do a lot around values with my clients to the point where they're like, the values again? I'm like, yeah. So, and we also decide who we're going to walk away from. So put in the chat, how do values show up in your coaching? Okay, everywhere, work, family, marriage, parenting, self, deeply values continuous learning. Okay, cool. Throughout the coaching relationship, values show up in my coaching by questions I'm prompting to ask. Yes, Elizabeth, and we're going to go deeper into that. So it should be, well, you're going to have a lot of fun with this. So today we're going to do why I'm going to talk about why values are so important. And we've already started to talk about that. How to easily identify your values and how to use your values once you've described them. And that's something that I find, and I've been talking to several ICF groups, that's the step that they don't know. And so I do have a system and a way to share with you that's going to take values to that next level and help you with your clients really see how to utilize them once they have them. So I'm going to stop sharing because we're going to talk and we're going to go into breakout rooms and all that kind of stuff. So another reason why values are so important is, an example is, so when I was a new coach and I was in coaching school, and this had to be like 2003, 2004 or something, I've always been entrepreneurial. I call myself a serial entrepreneur. And I got in by two other ladies that I knew, and I'm in these networking groups, to join a business partnership. And we were going to start an online portal for business women, entrepreneurs. Now there are tons of them, but back then. And I was, like I said, I was going through my coach training at the time, and I was learning my values. And I didn't know why I was miserable. And I really just kind of like, again, I just felt like something was not right. And when I identified the values that were being stepped on, I realized I needed to get out of the situation. And luckily I was able to leave whole, and we all put some money in, and I actually got my money back, which was good. So one of my values is value my opinion. And so there was a woman who was like, did not see it as a partnership. She saw it as my way or the highway kind of thing. So the values were misaligned for me, and I knew I had to leave this situation. And then at that time, I decided to focus on my own coaching business. I needed to follow my own goals and not someone else. So now, fortunately, I do know my values. I can describe them. I know which ones are my key relationship values. I know when they're stepped on. And when they are, I have a decision to make. And how do I want to move forward with that person? So it affects everything from work relationships to my marriage, to my relationships with my son and my relationships with my clients. So we're going to go into a breakout room, and it's going to be 2 into a room. So luckily there's 4 of us here. And I want to, you're going to share with your partner an experience where your values were stepped on and how it upset you. And try to identify which values were misaligned. Okay, so that's the breakout room exercise. Any questions? Oh, you're muted, Cora.
I'm creating your rooms right now.
Okay, then I'll put it in here. An experience that where they went in. Okay. Oh, so we're together. Hi.
All right, so we sent them off.
And if you want to stop the recording, so if you want to chat, do the exercise. Just, yeah, pause it. Yeah. You're back. Yay.
Yay,
Okay.
you're back.
Yeah, well, sometimes I always wonder if any people are ever going to come back, so we have to kick you out. So what values stood out for you in this exercise, and how often do these values come up in your personal and work relationships? Does anyone want to share? We're a small, intimate group here. You have to unmute, Elizabeth.
I don't know how I got muted. I guess when you pulled me back in, maybe it muted me. So for me, it's the value of ensuring that not only myself as a woman, but other women that I work with are empowered and propped up and built up to be treated with respect and in ways that they should be in the workforce, right? So that's a value that sometimes I get triggered with, and sometimes am leaned upon to stand up for things that should not be happening or whatever it might be. So that's one of the values that I can see in the workforce that is definitely near and dear to my heart and important to me. It's also important to me to be a leader for and a mentor for those around me that might be coming to me or asking me or leaning on me to guide or help or coach, whether they're asking for that or not. It's essentially what ends up happening, right? So that's actually something that I really value, the fact that I have that opportunity to serve in that capacity, but it's also very important to me to be the voice for those that may not have theirs yet.
Great. Yeah. So
Elizabeth, is it fair to say there's like a fairness and justice piece in what you're saying?
Yeah.
We didn't share that, but yeah, I picked up on that because, mine is more social justice oriented, especially living in a state and seeing other states wanting to legislate the way what you read, your behavior, how far are we going to go? But also, and that does come up sometimes in working with clients, not so much the social justice piece, but more what Elizabeth describing, the idea of being suppressed in one's role, and their potential not necessarily being recognized. And what do you do? What do I do about that? So it comes up in that form. And for me, and what I was sharing with Elizabeth, is that it becomes an important activity to kind of recognize what the awkwardness around that. And I didn't share this with Elizabeth, but, to mind the gap between what I believe and what I do, because I could easily blow a relationship if I chose to lecture. This is an example, lecture someone about the injustice of their behavior or their rhetoric, which, one of the other values I have is sound communication. So, you can easily diminish that piece of that. I can diminish that piece of myself if I choose to act on the emotional reactivity piece.
So Virginia, that sounds so familiar to Haidt's matrix of ethics, right? Where we really, just because somebody else may have a care harm value, maybe I have a liberty oppression, doesn't make either one of us wrong. I mean, if we can't interact, it means really recognizing it's not that they it's getting out of that right, wrong language and recognizing, wow, you're really coming from that palette of care harm or that fairness where I'm coming from, liberty, let's live our own. you know, whatever that difference is, and really recognizing that people agree in that we all want to do what's right and live in a world where it's right, but how we define it.
Are you talking about Jonathan Haidt?
Yeah.
We are digressing. So let's stick to the values exercise. As a coach, I have to rein you guys in. You probably could talk about this all day. So asking these values questions, and this is a values question. What drives you crazy? What's upsetting you? What is, you know, the negative? It is the negative. Really helps you create awareness and helps your clients understand what their needs and desires are and what works best for them. So that's all we want to get to, is what is really what's their come from place and what works best for them and what makes them feel whole or comfortable. Okay. So now, how do you identify your values more deeply and specifically? Okay. So, what process do you use to get to your clients' values? And since we have a small group, we can just maybe go around. Cora, you want to go first? You're unmuted.
Sure. First of all, it would depend on the client. It would depend on so many things. When I say, how do I get to a client's values? If it's a client that is been given, say, 6 sessions by their company, and their company said, we need you to learn to A, B, and C, but we understand that values drive behavior, right? It could be much, much briefer. Like, hey, here's a list of values. How does that show up in your behavior? How does that show up in your strengths? So that they can see a connection. It might be a real quick conversation versus that other client that says, hey, I signed up for 6 months of coaching because I really want to dig in. I really want to find whether it's career coaching or personal coaching. I think that first of all, I adapt to the person and the situation. And some people want to dive right in. I was just coaching somebody who's wanting in Dublin, who she wants to dig into, you know, I'm a war baby, so this happened and da, 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 da. It's like, we're going to do a really deep exercise on finding those versus somebody else that comes and says, can we just bypass values? So I might do something quick, like, great, can you share a favorite movie with me so that I can get some sense of what really resonates? So I would say I use different approaches.
Okay. What about you?
I think it does depend on the client in terms of the starting place. I really like your term, the clients come from place. I like that a lot because what it tells, if I think about who we are and how we became who we are. And with that comes a series of beliefs, core beliefs about who I am and who others are. And we use those core beliefs to help us navigate through life. So if a client presents, one of my favorite ones was a gentleman who actually was an ex-Marine working for a government organization in the field of aviation, and him having to really bump up about his core beliefs of what he learned in his military career with what he believed were the core beliefs of his supervisors, and how they really were not adherent to mission. And in many ways he was right, but at the same time too, he was very frustrated in terms of, how do I get them to believe like I do? When in fact, it really wasn't that at all. It's about learning about what they believe to try and.
So what I'm trying to find out is that do you use a process?
That's
you use a specific process. Yeah.
You're hearing one of my processes. And like Cora, you get there differently. You get to that point differently, but it is about filtering out what you believe. How does it motivate you, inspire you, etc.
Right.
Great. And Elizabeth? You have to. Yeah, okay.
Sorry, I think my short answer to that is you meet them where they are as far as your clients. And that might be a little bit cliche, but you're going to start at a different point with depending on where they are, right? Wherever they're coming from, you're going to start with the values and maybe go slow or go fast or go deep. Or
I didn't know. I've asked this question. This is interesting. I've asked this question several times with different groups. And this is interesting. Most people, a lot of coaches have a process they take their clients through. And so I get those kind of answers.
well, I have a checklist is what I was going to say. I have a checklist, and they start with the checklist, and then there's an opportunity after the checklist to fill in the blank, because if the checklist didn't include something that they find near and dear to their values, then they can certainly feel free to write it in. But that gives us a starting point to jump from there, if that answers your question more.
Okay, great. So I just want to share that I worked with several coaches. Most of us have had coaches, right? And even before I became a coach, and I've gone through coach training for my coach CEUs and things, and they talk about values and stuff. And when I worked with some of my coaches, they gave me a list of 100 words, and they said, pick your top 10. And then I'm like, I looked at the page and my eyes glazed over. I'm like, how do I choose, right? And my eyes hovered over integrity. And then I thought to myself, well, I should have that one, right? However, was that really true? Hope it's true, but is it a top value for me? And I was really struggling with a method to identify my values. And so after my training with the CTI, now the Coactive, they taught me a process that has been proven time and time again. And it's really been transformational for me. So we're going to go into another breakout room. Again, I think, 5 minutes with the 1 minute, extra. Tell us about your best friend and why they're your best friend. And what values do you share with your best friend? And so,
Okay.
Just write it down or put it in chat.
do you guys get it? Do we need to write it down?
Yeah, we got it.
Got it. They got it. They're bright, very bright ladies. Yeah, quick. Yeah. They got us going, Cora, to the breakout room.
Apologies.
Okay. So, yeah, so tell me about your best friend.
My best friend is my husband.
That's nice. So, and what
I
makes
spend my time with, and I have other friends, but for the most part, he's my best friend.
yeah. So what makes him your best friend?
What makes him my best friend? I think that we're very different in personalities, right? It's not that he doesn't irritate me a good portion of the time. But at the end of the day, what I know is the number one thing for me to be in a relationship is loyalty to the relationship, and that the relationship is the value. We're both going to be better parents when we have a better relationship. We're both going to be better in work, better friends, right? So that if we're going to have a life partner, that has to be number one. So that's a stated value. And so for him, his loyalty is off the charts. It really is. And so and when we were dating, I remember one time he had said, well, I can't see you this weekend. He's divorced, has had 2 children, right? He said, this is my weekend with my kids, and I don't break that. And I remember thinking, that's the kind of guy I want to date, that doesn't say, hey, I'm going to break a day with my children to go on some date with some hot redhead. I used to be really hot when I was young, but still am. But that meant something to me. That really, really meant something to me, that he was not going to break a commitment he had made for his own enjoyment. And I thought, that's the kind of person I want to be in a relationship with. And then when we were first married, I bought a car and he didn't agree. We had a big fight over it, and I bought it anyway. I'm independent. And like a week after I bought the car, I called him up. I was at the barn. I have horses, and I was at the barn where I boarded him. And I called up and I said, the Jeep won't start. Battery's dead. And what he said was, I will be right there. No argument. No, I told you so. No, well, you can just sit there. And I thought that he doesn't seek revenge is why I married him. So at the end of the day, who can I count on? My best friend, my husband.
Mm-hmm.
I won't argue with
Being able to count on somebody, I can count on you.
That's right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very nice.
How about you?
Well, I have my husband, and I have a gal pal. So,
Nice.
and my gal pal is somebody, again, I mean, if I needed her, she would be there. She doesn't always, I had a back injury and I went to the hospital. Well, my husband was, he's got the loyal thing too.
Yeah.
But she came to see me, and she hates hospitals. And so she's even taken me to like doctor's appointments sometimes when my husband was at work or something, but we just enjoy the same things. We both are into fitness and staying healthy, and we like fashion and all that stuff. So there's a lot of things that we value, and she also likes to keep me informed, and I get very busy and with my head in the sand, and so so she does kind of make sure that I am aware of things, so almost like keeping me safe. Do you know this happened? And my mother does the same thing. So I think she's kind of
how
like
interesting.
a version of my mother. My mother clips out articles. My mother tells me, be careful about this, but her agenda is probably the same as my girlfriend's agenda is we don't want anything to happen to you, because I don't know what I'll do if anything happened to you. Yeah.
Nice. I love that. Love that.
So it's kind of a, making sure that I'm okay and taking care of myself and not killing myself like I do.
I'm going to give 1 minute.
Yeah. So those are the values, I mean, health, staying healthy and fit, and living a healthy lifestyle, and stuff like that. So, yeah. So, and my husband and I met, I was divorced. This is my second marriage. It's his first. And we were in a biking group.
Oh, how fun.
And I met him through the biking group. He showed up. He was like, but he's an introvert. So he only showed up because he was like, okay, I got to do something. Yeah. So, and I met Janice through my girlfriend through Viking Brunch. So,
how fun.
For young, we were all in our 30s and 40s, and and young, not so young professionals.
Yes.
Yeah, and so it's interesting to see where everybody is. It's now 20 plus years later. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So I know for me, it's really interesting. They say this, but then you see it. My husband has so many of the characteristics of my father. It's hysterical. It's hysterical.
Yeah. It's the Imago match thing. And I don't know if you know the Harville Hendrix stuff, the Imago in the image of good and the bad, the good and the bad.
Oh yeah, because my husband's very loyal, but he's very independent. Like, he's gonna go do his own thing. I don't get to manage him or control him. He's like, you know what? That's nice. but he will not jeopardize a relationship. He's not disrespectful. It's like my father described him as, he's so soft, so gentle, with a solid background. You're not going to push backbone. You're not going to push him around. It's like, well, who does that sound like?
So just know we're recording this.
I know, right? I just realized that.
It just shows a good values exercise. So
Yeah.
okay, well, welcome back. So how was that experience, huh? What was the connection like with the person in the room when you shared those values? Let's talk more about the connection rather than what you actually talked about.
When you say connection, well, I think
The
about
other person in the room. Yeah.
I would say listening, and being non-judgmental. Those are two things that I experienced.
Yeah, but how do you now feel about Elizabeth?
Well, I know her a little bit more. I told her, if we're going to keep doing this
yeah.
the whole time, we're going to be good friends. So,
Yeah, we connect through shared values. So I know that Cora and I had a lot of similar values that showed up.
Mhm.
And so now it's like, I know Cora. Cora's a cool lady, yeah. So the thing about the values is, trying to take it one step further too. You want to try to describe your values. You don't want to either just the one word. So I remember in the first exercise, and well, actually, before I tell you, so we don't want to stop at one word. We don't want to like the independence or health or, I don't know what came up in your room. Yeah, what was the values you named in your room?
well, it's interesting because we were going on the premise of best friend. What would your best friend, whether those shared values? We didn't necessarily talk about values that Elizabeth and I share, right, Elizabeth?
No, not you two. What you share with your best friend? Yes. What values came up for you that you
Yes.
like maybe name one that you want to, how would you describe it?
Well, I used authenticity.
Okay.
Being yourself, being clear about who you are, and not being afraid to say.
Yeah. So we don't want to stop at like just what you did. I'm glad you did that. We don't want to stop at the one word, like authenticity. We have to describe it
Mhm.
because what's authentic to you may be different to Elizabeth,
True.
her definition.
For
I
sure.
always love to use this example, and I know, we talked about it, Cora. Put in the chat, how would you define independence? You have an independence value, and if you did, how would you define it? Let's see what's coming up. Okay. So making decisions on your own. Okay. Anyone else have, what's your independence value? How would you describe it? Hold strong to your own values, comfortable with dismissing outside influences. I'm sorry, I'm mumbling. Comfortable with dismissing outside influences. So, I have an independence value, and I'm sure many of you have. You may have a version because if you do work on your own, I'm not sure your definition would be the same, but I call myself an independent creative entrepreneur. It's about my work. It's that I'm free to work the way I see fit. Like I create, and it's my creative energy. I create coaching programs like my Motivated to Marry Dating Secrets.
Mhm.
I wrote a book called Get It Right This Time, How to Find and Keep Your Ideal Romantic Relationship. I run workshops, like 10 tips for jumpstarting your dating, or how to get it right this time kind of thing. So I'm in continual creative mode. Actually, I own over 300 domain names because I had a business guru who told me if you think it, buy it. So it's kind of like real estate. I have like a mortgage to GoDaddy right now. So you may also have a financial independence value. So none of you mentioned money. I usually, because if there's more people in the room, I get a bigger diverse.
Mhm.
We're all women here, so maybe if you get men in the room, there might be some other thoughts coming. But and so many have like to be self-sufficient. I also have the financial independence value to be self-sufficient, not depend on anyone for income and money. And you might have this one too. And so sometimes our values are aspirational because it's like, I'm not there yet. And so you can have a goal that's not fully realized yet. And there's another question like, who do you admire? And that pulls out a lot of aspirational values.
Mm.
A lot of people, I have introverts who like come up and say social people who are comfortable in social situations, and they're not, but they really admire somebody who is. And so that's something that they would love to be able to do and have and stuff like that. So like I said, so you can see that it's important to create descriptions of your values that are meaningful to you and your clients. And you can also use the wheel of life to help you. You can ask questions like, what's important about money? What's important about your health? What's important or fulfilling about your work? So put in the chat, how many values would you say you identify with your clients when you do values work? How many do you kind of pull out? Okay, 2 to 4.
One is the top 10.
Top 10? Mm-hmm.
You start there, or that's where you land?
That's where I start with the checklist. They're
Okay.
asked to identify their top 10 from the list or include a write-in.
Yeah. So I usually get around 24 values for my clients in a values clarification session, which takes me about 2.5 hours. I do ask them I ask a series of questions, and each question pulls out a different kind of, and there is some overlap. But what I consider it like, I call it like an excavation. And so each question, like you had the first question today, pulls out a different area. And then like the best friend question pulls out a different. And so you're kind of like pulling and then seeing what comes up. And so and you can have more, you can have less, depends on the person. It's an individual thing. But now that you describe the values, I take it one step further. Okay, so now I have these values descriptions. So I would say creative, independent entrepreneur, or healthy, active lifestyle, or maintaining and striving to be healthy. Could be the health, an example of a health value. But once you have the values, there's several ways you can work with them. And so here's some ways that I go deeper. So there's business relationships, right? And there's relationships with their colleagues and bosses and employees, and there's personal relationships, like a significant other, friendships, family relationships. So for instance, in the Motivated to Marry coaching program, I help my clients identify their relationship values versus personal values. So they can see how they need to be aligned with a life partner. Okay, so you can do this for different relationships. It's not just, romantic relationships. So you ask, how do you use these values to help you? So like, for instance, so what I like to do, like I said, is I like to classify the values as being personal or relationship. So take your values once you've identified them and ask yourselves, is this a relationship or personal value? So a personal value alone, you don't need to share this with a coworker, a friend, or family member. It is something that they do need to support respect, and appreciate you for. So I think, like Cora, you identified an independence value around your work, right? And so that the other people need to respect that value. So that sounds like it's a personal value. You don't need to share that value with a partner. Like my independent creative entrepreneur value, I don't need my husband to have that value. But what I do need is that he appreciates me for it, he respects me for it, and he supports me in it. So today I took the basement. He's supposed to be working down here, and he's upstairs with his laptop because he's supporting me in doing my work. So that's kind of how that works. And a relationship value, you do need to share. You do need to kind of both share that value. So like the loyalty value, being a loyal partner and someone who has your back. Of course, you would need to share that. That's a relationship value. So, yeah. So anyway, so I asked this question, do you need to share this value with my life partner or best friend or work colleague? And if you say yes, then it's a relationship value and you mark it as such. Okay. And if it's a no, then it's a personal value, right? So I kind of said
Can I
that.
ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
In like you asked earlier, like semantics, how do we define each other? And I think I'm getting trying to understand the words that you're using. So for me, some of that would feel like just characteristics versus, I mean, like, when I'm thinking more about, like you said, you have a real independent value. I don't know if that's a value. I think that's a characteristic of just who I am as a person at a core. Like I just need independence. And even using the example when you said, if you're working with somebody and they say, who do I aspire to? Well, I really like that person who's very socially adept because I'm more introverted. And I think for me, that kind of, I started really listening and trying to understand you, because for me, that would be more helping them be authentic and understand how to use their introversion as their superpower versus how do I be more like other people? So I'm just trying to understand the difference.
Right.
What is a
So
value?
what we're doing is we're pulling out values are what's important to people, what matters most. So it can be a characteristic and a value. So what I like to do is get these values out so they understand themselves better and they can see that this is important to me. Okay. And so I'm just saying, I was just using like, so the value would be having social ease. Okay. That's what's important to them. Okay. Their characteristic, they may be, or they might have been identified as a more introverted person on the Myers-Briggs because they want more time to themselves. They need time to recharge their batteries, yada, yada. Doesn't mean they're not social too. I know some introverts who are very social. And I call them social introverts. So it is semantics. So this is about really pulling out your values from a way of increasing your client's awareness. That when they see their values in this way, it's almost like an aha moment. Like they didn't even know they had them. They know some of them, but the way I pull them out, they're like, wow, I didn't really know. I didn't see it that way. Now, not all values, and I think it sounds like what Elizabeth does, not all values are something that we live every day. So there's another level of what you can do with your values. So I don't know what the example, we can find an example of that, but how fully am I living this value today? You can say from 0 to 10. How fully am I living this value? So I have a value about being organized and on top of things. Okay, I do. If you ask me how fully I'm living it today, probably give you a 3. I admire organized people. I admire, I'm always struggling to stay on top of things, and have my Canva and my slides show up, when they're supposed to show up. I admire that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but this is just, and there are different ways to slice things. You know what? There's no one right way. All I'm doing is sharing how I go deeper with values. And what I find is most coaches stop here. And I want you to consider to go down here and take it that next level. So all I'm doing is teaching you some new things and some new ways of thinking about things. And whether you want to adopt it, that's up to you.
Can
Yeah.
I ask a quick question? If you are going through whatever checklist you use, okay, let's just assume that we all use some sort of checklist or list to identify your top 10 or top 25. And then from there, we kind of start talking about those. I think we've all had those situations where people identify, gosh, I really value this value here, but I've made some choices in my life that are pretty big that do not align with that value. And so it's kind of eye-opening for them. So are you trying to encourage us to kind of dig down to bring that to the surface for them and bring their awareness to those items? Is that
Could
what you're
be. Can I
referring
say
to?
this sounds like it's a value for you. You may not be living it fully right now. And so, right. And you have made choices around that. Because what I notice is there's a half a dozen values that bubble up to the surface time and time. We have themes in our lives. And so those bubble up to the surface. And what I do is when I hear those values time and time again, I take a highlighter and I highlight them. And so for me, with my clients who are looking for partners, I look at those relationship values or those values that need to be supported by a partner. Okay, as an entrepreneur, that was a big thing for me. Okay. When I was dating, there was a lot of men who could not handle my self-employment. I had another business. I owned a women's clothing store, actually. And it was an inconvenience to them because they expected different things from a woman, let's just say, maybe a more traditional kind of situation. And so yes, so there are values. Some of those values do creep up to the surface and are the ones that I really tell my clients to pay attention to.
May I add something?
Yeah, sure.
I think that, Corey, you just said something that I think is important because sometimes clients do feel a sense of dissonance between what they believe and what they're doing or what they're being asked to do.
100%.
Okay. And it creates a conflict for them. So that's an opportunity to circle back to the top values or strengths that they have operating in their lives and to ask the question, how far are you leaning into those values for this particular situation or not leaning into them? And that opens up a whole nother field of inquiry. So, I just think that this is why I inventory, much like Elizabeth says, and probably all of you, what people's values are, because they're a reference point for people. That's what I meant about them helping us navigate through life and through dissonance for sure.
Oh, of course. And you get to make a decision about how you want to be with that.
Yeah.
And understand when things are being stepped on and when things, are not aligned. And I use it when my clients are trying to make decisions around who they're dating or relationships they're in. Is it working or not working for them?
Good example.
Can they navigate, right? I love that word, around, can they find that middle ground or not? And they have a choice to make, right? Coaching's all about making choices. So they have a choice to make. Is this the right relationship for me or is not?
Mhm.
And that's around the work I do. But it can be about taking on a project or working for a company or taking that contract or hiring this person. It can all be around, so values, as we started, is everywhere, right? Our values show up everywhere. So I encourage you to take some of the values you found today and really identify them as a personal or relationship value. And so you can kind of say, and know what you need in order to be for you and also for your clients. As I said, having a good grasp on your relationship values matters because knowing them helps them make important decisions, which is exactly what you were saying about certain relationships in your life, or how do you want to handle those relationships? Understanding the differences between your family of origin. I have conflict with my son, I have conflict with my mother. I understand what values are being stepped on. You'll discover why you're close friends or you're close friends. And if you're looking for love, or know somebody who is, then you more easily recognize the partner when you meet him and her. What's really interesting about my work, and I've been doing this for 20 years now, is I look back and my clients recognize the right person within 3 to 6 dates.
Wow.
And they become exclusive. Whether it goes the distance, you have to spend time with people and date them for a little, but I would say within 3 to 6 months. And I don't work with babies. I work with people who are usually, most of my clients are late 30s and over, even into their 70s. So they know themselves pretty well, but they just need a little tweaking. They just need a little adjustment. They need some help. Sometimes they're not good decision makers, or they question themselves and things like that. So like I said, what I find is we have themes in our lives, those important values that keep cropping up time and time again. And like I said, that's where I put my clients. What's that? Yes. Yeah.
So Elizabeth had it on her calendar that it was a 1 hour, so she's jumping.
I've got to go.
Oh, I thought I was here till 2:30.
No,
Okay.
You are. It's scheduled.
Wait, can I
Yours is on
just
her
say that
calendar.
there's a cheat sheet that gives you the questions, so make sure you look at that.
The
And
cheat sheet. Where is the cheat sheet?
Cora will send out, or whoever runs the group will send it out to you. And if you don't have it, I know it was sent to the original person.
I'll have
I didn't want to
Samantha send
interrupt
that out.
you. I appreciate, this is just very valuable. I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for sharing. I don't want to interrupt you, but I do need to jump off. Thank you. It was very
Okay,
nice
I
to
wish
meet
I
you.
knew. I would have.
No worries. You're good.
Discussions, yeah. So
And I did want to thank you, Elizabeth. I just wanted to just throw out the possibility in this context where we're using the word values, right? And so we all, as coaches, we understand what that means and the importance, and we're talking about a process. And I think that, and I would love your all's insight. A lot of times when I go through what we're calling a process, I don't always use the word values, because sometimes what happens is people get attached to what they're supposed to call in, right? Or what they, so instead of saying, hey, let's talk about your values, I may do those digging questions, so that then after we go through a sort of long conversation, I might say, would you say you value, and then ask if that resonates versus those terms, because what I don't want to is associate as what I'm supposed to. So some of those questions are like, what are your triggers? And one of the questions I love to ask, what's your favorite movie or favorite book, and why, and what about that? What part in the movie? Tell me the scene, right? And so in that, they can really dig in and go, oh, so what is that really important to you? And so I try to use different language sometimes.
well, I do that. I say, so what's important? So I dig deeper when
Right,
I pull it out. I say, what's important about this for you? Why does this matter for you? Right. That's part of the digging deeper and getting those values descriptions.
Because they may not know they're talking about values until at the end, when you say, so here's what I'm hearing from you. Is this accurate?
Right. So my clients come to me for this, and they want values clarification because they've heard about it. It's in a lot of my marketing and stuff like that. And it is,
of course.
And the values really define for my clients where they're going to meet someone, how they put themselves online, because online dating is very big, 80% of my successfully coupled climbs from online dating. So again, I infuse their values into their profile.
Right.
And so they're attracting the right people.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so
Virginia,
that's
do
why
you
it's
find
attractive.
you use the term values, or do you use in coaching relationships?
I think it comes in different ways, and I think it's kind of split on the personal aspirational piece or relational piece. So things, what is it what is it that drove, what thoughts drove that behavior? Okay. So that's a way of helping them to dig in, to be a little bit more reflective, some
Yeah.
self-reflection. What motivated you to take that job? That's another way to talk about values. But in general, yeah, I do talk about values, but I interpret them as core beliefs. They're
Nice.
just really deep inside of us. And we were influenced too. They're not all temperament driven. We were influenced by our environment around those values, which really, it really influences people's perspectives on diversity, for example, right? The value of diverse backgrounds. Those are some of the ways that
And that question, and I'm sure, Amy, you probably have it in there, is that, what about your upbringing really influenced who you are today, right? How does that resonate?
It could be. It's not part of what I ask. So as a coach, I care about who they are today and what they want today. And so I don't really, go back. I kind of move forward. I see who they are today. It may influence it. It might come up, but it's not where I tend to go as a coach. Yeah. So, I mean, you have the PhD, so, I know that you guys dig.
I don't, Virginia does.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I noticed they dig.
Virginia's a doctor. I'm just an
letters.
MBA.
Yeah, I'm expected to know more, but don't necessarily do, depending on the situation. So, I mean, I always want to err on the side of humility.
Yes.
I do think that what we're seeing is just something that I really love about coaching, which is just the different styles, but the same agreement around the same competencies.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah.
I know a lot of
Right. What works for you?
Most of my arena is around leaders. I spend most of my time in executive and second, third level leaders. And of course, it's important, like if you don't know what your values are, then you're not able to predict and manage what your triggers are. And then you don't have your clear North Star, like this is what's going to guide me in this decision. So it's really important. So I'll use some examples. And so for example, when I'm going, here's my, gifts, what are my talents, to arrive here. And so I'll start with, hey, I was influenced by the fact that I was raised by a behavioralist, by a youth development consultant. And as a very young child, watching young people have the opportunity to transform their lives through knowledge, skills, and ability that they otherwise didn't have. And when they did, they could take control of their life and make the decision for it, caused me to have such a deeply held belief in the value of learning and the importance of giving knowledge. So that's an example that for me, coming out of an experience where I would watch people that were predictably a cog in the wheel of society become whoever they wanted to, had a huge influence on my definition of what the world looks like. And so I think that I can't leave that out of my values. So I think that's
but it would come out. I'm sure through one of the questions, love of learning and all that, and learning and continuous growth would come out somehow. I don't think, and then you can reflect if you wanted, where did they come from? That's another, But I just care about what's important to somebody today and what they want for themselves today. So, I mean, that's as a coach, that's part of my training is, leave it to the therapist. And it kind of comes up sometimes. I mean, I even had one of my clients recently, he said, this is why I do this. I think it's because of my family of origin. And, I've worked really hard to kind of, change this dynamic. So,
I want to make sure we have a couple minutes here at the end as we're coming up. Thank you so much, Amy, for giving up your time, you're sharing your
So I
knowledge.
just wanted, yeah, thank you. I wanted to also share that I do have a relationship coaching training. And so if anyone wants to learn more about that, I do train my values system to my coaches. And so it is called the Motivated to Marry Relationship Coach Training. It's ICF accredited for 40 CEUs. And it does have applications beyond dating. So, it is kind of oriented towards singles and helping singles and those who are not married make decisions about their partnerships. And so if you know somebody who would really appreciate this training, it's very unique. There aren't a lot of me out there. When I go to ICF groups, I find I'm the only relationship coach in the room. And I would love to have more of us, because the people who are doing this work are not trained, not qualified. And, I love the fact, I mean, I am real clear that somebody has to be a professional life coach, a therapist or a social worker before they could do my work and learn the Motivated to Marry coachings. So I just want to share that this is I'm putting it out in the world. And if somebody is aligned to learning or just curious about what the training's all about, it's a whole life training, but it does focus on dating and relationships.
I think that's wonderful. I think it is. I mean,
Yeah, it took me like 8 years to get to this place. And I just graduated my first coach. So it's actually a great opportunity because it's at a lower price. Right now, I've got it at a very low price because this is the second go around. And, but it's a very high level training.
good for you. Thank you. I know values, most people don't even think about them. They don't know they have values.
They know it internally, but when they see it and they can make decisions based on it, it's life changing.
It is life changing. I used to teach it in the classroom all the time, and just the whole little 1 to 10 metric, name the issue, where do you stand? And it's like, whoa. So
They don't know that, and so I see it as another decision-making tool for your life. It's not the only thing. It's something that you check in with yourself on.
it's the reference point. Definitely.
Exactly. So thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me share.
Thank you. Again, thank you for that. And we will have this recording available, as you well know, for others that weren't able to make it to watch.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
Okay. And then Cora, will you send information about
I
continuing?
will let Samantha know that to go ahead and send it out, who the people were in attendance. And I'm sure the ICF assistant Samantha has that and is ready to send it out.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
And I'm sure probably the ICF credits probably too.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you much. It was nice spending time with you.
Nice
Thank
meeting you.
you.
Bye-bye. Save the chat before I leave.